The Chinese government is collecting data from traditional sources like bank and police, but also a lot of surveillance of your online activity. So for example, if you're messaging sensitive words or posting things about sensitive topics online, this can also get you a negative score.
Okay, this is here from Framtiden. We're broadcasting from Gather 2019 in Stockholm. And I'm sitting here with Andie Zhang. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very nice to be here.
You just did an interesting talk on the age of surveillance economy, which is a hot topic nowadays. And we're going to go into a bit more detail about that. But first of all, what is your background?
So I was born in China, and I moved to Sweden from China when I was 10 years old. I have a master's degree from the KTH here in Stockholm. And after that, I worked with multinational companies in technology, strategy, sales and marketing, etc., in China and in Sweden. So I was working in China for 8 years. Recently, I moved from China to Munich. So that's a little bit about my background.
So you're based in Munich now?
Yes. Right now I'm based in Munich, yes.
You caught my interest because you were talking about the social credit system in China, which is, as I understand it, being rolled out increasingly now. And I think a lot of people have heard about it, but few people actually know what it means. Can you explain to our listeners a bit what it exactly entails, this social credit system?
So basically, it's a way of assessing the trustworthiness of individuals and businesses in China. Because in China today, there is lacking a credible source of basically credit rating for individuals and for governments. So they don't have the systems and institutions that we have in Sweden or in the West, which builds on many years of historical data, because China only became a market economy in the end of the 1990s. So all the companies are very young. So what it is that based on your behavior, for example, paying your bills on time, or if you do good things like donating blood, or bad things like traffic violations or not paying your bills on time, you can get plus or minus score. And if you are a good citizen, you behave well, you pay your bills on time, you can get a high score, and this brings a lot of conveniences in daily life. For example, a good interest rate from the bank, or you can rent a car without a deposit, stay in a hotel without a deposit. And if you have a low score, you can be punished, and this can impact your daily life as well. For example, being denied a bank loan, or if you're really bad, not even being able to travel. So the Chinese government is collecting data from traditional sources like bank and police, but also a lot of surveillance of your online activity, because we live so much of our lives online now. So for example, if you're messaging sensitive words or posting things about sensitive topics online, this can also get you a negative score.
And as you mentioned, they don't have Google in China, no Facebook, no Twitter, no WhatsApp. They all have Chinese alternatives, and they are huge, and they are all more or less controlled by the government, right?
Yes, basically, the reason why Google, Facebook, etc. are not allowed to operate in China is because the Chinese government has a rule that they need to be able to control you. And these tech giants have said, no, we don't want to be controlled by you. So that's why the Chinese government banned them. So the Chinese government do this, control the internet by building a firewall. We call it the Great Firewall of China, where there are censorship mechanisms and also people who are actively censoring this material. So the Chinese government can decide what people in China can see on the internet and cannot see.
But you're from Shanghai, right?
No, I'm not from Shanghai. I'm from Xi'an, actually. But I lived in Shanghai for 8 years.
Okay. But I mean, Shanghai is one of the most futuristic cities in the world, and is very well developed. Are people actually living by these rules?
Yes, so that's the interesting point. From the West here, we think it's completely crazy. How can the Chinese people be so ignorant to this type of surveillance and control? And it's just like you say, my friends in Shanghai, when I was living there, they're all highly educated young people. They are just like you and me here in the West. And Shanghai is a modern metropolis. And actually, by using VPN, you are able to access Google, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So it's more like a soft control by the government, not a very hard control. But the thing is that people don't feel this type of surveillance as a negative thing, because in the end, most people think they're law-abiding citizens and they're very happy about the benefits and conveniences this brings, because you can use a lot of services, from paying your bills on your mobile phone to picking up shared bikes, etc., and getting recommendations for products you like. And the convenience, people feel this outweighs the little piece of personal information that I'm giving away. And most importantly, people trust the government in China to not do bad things with this data. And what I really wanted to highlight today with my talk is that this is not just happening in China. This is happening in our daily lives in the West as well. Because when we use the services of Google or Facebook or Instagram, we are doing the same thing. We're offering our personal data for free in exchange for social media popularity or convenience in, getting restaurant recommendations nearby, etc. And we are not really concerned that these tech giants will do something bad with our data.
But what do you see in the future? Do you see that more governments will lean towards this sort of system?
I think that the European Union is now taking the lead in starting to regulate the tech giants. For example, I read that the new European Commissioner, Ursula, she has just assigned, first of all, she has escalated the issue of regulating US tech giants to be one of the top 3 priorities. And she has nominated an executive vice president, who is Margareta, I forgot her last name, but from Denmark, to be working on this topic. And also in Europe, we have GDPR, which is really the first sort of comprehensive system to try to regulate and protect individuals' data. So I think more governments in the West will realize the importance of this, because their people, the citizens, are becoming more aware of it. I mean, we hear of data breaches every month, and now with documentaries like The Great Hack, etc., we become more aware of what the influence that these tech companies has in our, how we formulate opinions, how we vote, for example. Because what they're doing is eroding the democratic processes, eroding the democratic society that we live in.
But my question was actually regarding the social credit system. Do you think that will be used by more governments?
In the West, there is already an established institution for, say, financial credit rating, right? This information we can get. And now more it's about digital, how to use the online sources and digital sources. And I think the government will look at how to use them for the benefit. For example, health records of people. Having access to this data and analyzing it can actually lead to advances in treatments and medical, etc. But I think what's really important here is for the government or the European Union to set some kind of ethical guideline. What is ethical to do and what is not ethical to do? Same thing with political campaigns. We cannot allow the Cambridge Analytica thing to happen again. We need to set some boundaries on what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Do you see any benefits of the system in China?
Yes. So in China, the problem today is that there is a lack of trust in society because the development happens so fast. In less than 30 years, China changed from a completely centrally planned economy, no private ownership of assets, to now this complete new digital age. So the change happened too fast, and the regulation just couldn't keep up. And also for individuals, they're so happy about the benefits and the increase in life quality that we're having, that people are not stopping to think about the negative aspects of it. And I think it will come with, for example, some scandals breaking out, and people will become more aware.
But and you said that people generally are quite positive to this system. Do you think it would lead to lower crime rates and better social behavior in everyday lives?
Yes, but that's for sure. It will lead to lower crime rates. But it's interesting you mentioned better social behavior because this implies that somebody is deciding what is good and bad. And this is really the difficult question here. Who is allowed to decide what's good and bad? Today, in the online world, in China, it's the Chinese government who decides what's good and bad. In the West, it's basically Google and Facebook, right? No government is allowed to tell them what they should show and not show. And this is the problem.
And you mentioned the EU trying to regulate the tech giants so we don't end up in this autocratic surveillance world. But do you think we can make this shift, or is it too late? Are we already in the hands of the data?
I think we're definitely a little late. For example, right now, if you think about who is shaping our digital world, it is not our government. Like mentioned by one of the speakers today, none of the political parties in Sweden have any policy on digital and data. So the political parties are so far behind that they really need to catch up so that we can go back to a democratic process, which will include digital and online topics as well as offline topics.
Can we say something about the tech giants in China? We mentioned that they don't have Google or Facebook or Twitter. And what do they have instead?
So in China, instead of Google, so for search, we have Baidu search. And instead of Facebook or social media in general, we have an app called WeChat, owned by Tencent. So actually, in the West, we have Facebook, Apple, Google, Amazon, etc. In China, we have BAT, that's Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and they run all the tech giants in China. So it's actually very interesting how China has developed this completely different, separate online world, but almost like a mirror of the Western. Either they're learning or copying from each other, or they're just have found the same ways to exploit people's online behavior and data.
And WeChat also has all the payments included, right?
Yes. So payment, actually, this is probably one of the reasons why people in China welcome these tech giants, because with the mobile payments that both Alibaba offers and WeChat offers, it brings a lot of convenience. So China is completely cashless now. And I read in the Financial Times yesterday that even beggars on the street in China can accept mobile payment. And this brings in really a lot of convenience. But this also means that the companies running the payment service have data about you. They know where you go, they know what food you order, they know what you buy, basically your financial track record.
And our kids are now starting to get totally obsessed by TikTok, which is also Chinese. Should we be concerned?
I think with any new app or digital service we use, we should read the privacy policy, because some of them are kind of crazy. I haven't read TikToks, but I have read some others. Basically, they say if you download this app, we can take all the data from your browsing history from your phone. We will know every app that you use, etc. And that, for me, is kind of scary. So I encourage everybody to take the time, read the privacy policy, and decide if it's really worth the 5 minutes of fun that you have with this.
So what do you see in the future generally for China? Yeah, what are the main obstacles now ahead?
Well, I think China will continue to develop very fast. And here we know that China is not taking the lead, but one of the top two in the world after US when it comes to artificial intelligence, facial recognition, etc. And the benefit or the competitive advantage that China has is a large population. So you have billions of people who don't really care about their personal privacy. This is a ripe ground for these companies to use this data and develop their algorithms. And this will definitely continue to happen as long as there's no big scandal breaking out, where the public will feel, okay, this is terrible. I no longer want to agree to this service.
What about sustainability? Are they shifting towards more sustainable practices as well?
Are you talking about environmental sustainability?
Yeah, probably in the first place.
Yes, actually, this is, I think, one of the good things that China now is focusing a lot more on environmental protection and sustainability. For example, Shanghai just started sorting our garbage. And the Chinese government really, or the Shanghai government really went all in. They developed apps where you can look up the item that you're trying to recycle and it will tell you which bin it goes into, etc., and really engaging the people, the public, into recycling. So I think sustainability, I am seeing a lot of positive developments in China, which is great.
How can we make sure not to become puppets in the future? Should we take more responsibility individually?
I think for sure. We need to educate ourselves. And I think the schools and the academia has a big responsibility in this, because now I know when I went to school, they didn't teach me any of the things that we're using in our daily lives today. So I hope today's schools are catching up and really educating the young people of today about what is happening in the digital world and data and privacy. So that I think as an individual, we need to take responsibility for our data and ask ourselves if what we're giving up is worth what we're getting back.
Do you have a reading tip?
Yes, of course. So Surveillance Capitalism by Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff.
Sounds interesting. Who do you think I should interview?
Professor Shoshana Zuboff, I think, would be a great person to interview.
Great answer. Thank you so much, Andie Zhang, for joining me here at Gather 2019. And heja framtiden.
Heja framtiden.
Heja framtiden. Okay, my name is Christian von Essen. You can find everything you need to know on hejaframtiden.se. Thank you for listening.